All right, so this is page 75 and 76 in your math workbook. So hopefully by this time, at least for the independent practice part, you have already completed these pages. I am going to go over the guided practice as well as the independent practice. So for the guided practice on page 75 again, it says draw a number line to show 8 times 1 equals 8. So again, draw a number line to show that 8 times 1 equals 8. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and draw a number line. And I'm going to make it a little bit longer. Okay, so this is going to be my 0. I'm going to have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. I know that I only need to go up to 8 because the product in my answer is 8. Okay, so remember when we learned about a number line that we would say this as 8 jumps of 1. So we're going to be taking 8 jumps of 1. So I would be going 1 jump, 2 jumps, 3 jumps, 4 jumps, 5 jumps, 6 jumps, 7 jumps, 8 jumps. So that's 8 jumps of 1. Okay, number 2 says Chad has 6 plates. There is 1 apple and 0 grapes on each plate. How many apples are there and how many grapes are there? Okay, so if we are looking, okay, we can see that there are 6 apples. So there are 6 apples. And how many grapes are there? Well, it says that there are 0 grapes on each plate. So there are going to be 0 grapes. So looking at number 3, we have 1 group, 2 group, 3 groups with 1 in each group. So again, 3 groups of 1. And we are looking at the identity property here because it has a 1. So we know that it's always going to be the other number. So we know that 3 times 1 is 3. Okay, for this one right here, it's showing us that we have 3 groups, but nothing is in those groups. So we know that we are going to have the 0 property of multiplication and that anything times 0 is going to be 0. With number 5, again, we have the identity property. So we're looking at the next factor. So we know that 1 times 7 is going to be 7. When we have a number 6, 5 times 0, we see that we have a 0 in there. For the 0 property, we know that anything times 0 is going to be 0. Okay, number 7, we have 4 times 0. So we have that 0 in there. Again, going along with the 0 property, so we know that the answer is going to be 0. And for number 8, we have this 1, which tells us that it is the identity property. So we know that it is the other number. So 2 times 1 we know is 2. Okay, looking down at these bottom ones. So 9 through 21 on this page. Oops, sorry. A little bit of a camera mix up there. So again, for number 9, we have the 0 property. So we know the answer is 0. For number 10, 1 times 6, we have the identity property, so it's always going to be the other factor, so it's going to be 6. For number 11, we have the identity factor, or the identity property, sorry, and so we know that the answer is 4. For number 12, we have 9 times 1. So hopefully for that one, you notice that it was the identity property, and you hopefully put it was 9. For 13, hopefully you saw that there was a 0, and you know now from the 0 property of multiplication that anything times 0 is 0. We have 1 times 1. Ooh, this is a tricky one. So we know it's the identity property because it has 1, but it has 2 1s, so it's just going to be 1. Okay, for number 15, we have 6 times 0. So again, we have the 0 property, so we know the answer is going to be 0. And then we have these at the bottom. So just a quick reminder for these marks, okay, the alligator, he always eats the bigger number. Okay, he always is eating the bigger number. And then of course we know what this sign is right there. It's the equal sign. So when we figure these out down here, we know that this is the identity property. So we know that this is going to equal 6. We know that 8 times 0 is going to equal 0. So we're asking ourselves, okay, is 6 or 0 bigger? And we know that 6 is going to be 0. So the alligator or crocodile is going to eat the bigger number. So it is going to eat the 6. Okay, for number 17, we have the 0 property. So 0 times 6, we know is 0. And 6 times 0, which is 0. We also have a commutative property here because it just flipped the factors. And so we know that that is going to be equal. For number 18, we have 0 times 7 and 5 times 1. So 0, because it has 0, it is the 0 property. So we know it's 0. And this one is the identity property. So we know the answer is 5. 5 is bigger than 0. So we're going to make sure that it eats the bigger number. For this run right here, we have 0 times 0, which we know is going to be 0 because of the 0 property. And we have 0 times 9. Oh, that one is 0 too. So these are going to be equal. For number 20, we have 1 times 7. So we have the identity. So we know this is going to be 7. And we have 5 times 1. That's also the identity property. So that's going to be 5. Okay, 7 is bigger. 7 is bigger than 5. For 21, we have 1 times 4. So we have the identity property, so it's going to be 4. And we have 4 times 1. Ooh, we have the commutative property here. So 4 times 1 and 1 times 4, they're going to equal the same thing. Okay, so going on to the back side, on number 22, it says, Brent drew this model to show 5 groups of 1 is the same as 1 group of 5. Is Brent correct, and how do you know? Okay, so hopefully you know by now the commutative property. So again, we have 1 group, 2 groups, 3 groups, 4 groups, 5 groups, 5 groups of 1. So there's going to be 5 total. So again, we have 5 groups of 1. And for this one, we have 1 group of 5. Okay, so yes. Brent is correct. He is correct because of the commutative property. Okay. So number 23, it says a unicycle relay team has 4 riders. Each rider has 1 unicycle. If each unicycle has 1 wheel, how many wheels does the team have? And what property of multiplication can you use to find the answer? Okay, so I know that it's a unicycle, so it's obviously going to have 1 wheel as it states. Okay, so again, I need to find out how many wheels does each team have. Okay, so I'm going to have 4 wheels times 1, or 1 times 4. Okay, so we can go ahead and use that commutative property, which is also, because we're using the 1, it's going to be the identity property. Okay, for number 24, it says, tickets for a school concert are free to students. The cost is $1 for each adult. What is the total cost of tickets for 5 students? So again, it says that students are free. So students doesn't cost you any money. Okay, and we need to figure out how much students are. So if we know that students are free, it's going to be 5 students and it's going to cost $0. So we know that it's going to be $0. Okay, for number 25, it says the product of 2 factors is 0. One of the factors is 0. Can you tell what the other factor is? And really, we can't tell what the other factor is. And the reason why is because if I did 0 times 1, that's going to equal 0. If I did 0 times 4, that's going to equal 0. So the reason we can't tell is because anything times 0 is going to be 0. So again, we can't tell because of the 0 property. Okay, number 26. It says the children in the 3rd grade classes are having a bike parade. Barb's class has 18 bikes. Tim's class has some rows of bikes with 5 bikes in each row. Tim's class has more bikes than Barb's class. Then it says, how many rows of bikes could Tim's class have? Okay, so again, we are thinking about this, okay, and we're going to read it one more time because it's a word problem. So the children in the 3rd grade classes are having a bike parade. Barb's class has 18 bikes. Tim's class has some rows of bikes with 5 bikes in each row. Tim's class has more bikes than Barb's class. Okay. How many rows of bikes could Tim's class have? Okay, so we know that we're going to have to put these into rows, okay, and that he's saying that he has 5 rows, 5 in each row, okay, so in that he has more than 18. So if I added another 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, that's not more. 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. Oh, so that's going to be more than Barb. So we're going to go ahead and count this. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4 rows and 5 columns. So 4 times 5 is going to be 20. So that is how we could have more bikes in Tim's class than Barb's class. Okay, is if we had 4 rows of them. So for the next one, number 27, it has 4 parts to it. So it says, is the equation correct? Choose yes or no. So again, we have the identity property here. So remember, it's always the factor. So this one is going to be no. 4 times 4 equals 0. Ooh, I don't see a 0 or a 1 in either of these. So I know the answer is not going to be 0. For 7 times 1, I have the identity property. So again, it's always the other factor. So that is a yes. And I have a 0 for the 0 property right here. So I know this answer is going to be 0. So that one is not correct. All right, thanks. Make sure you check your work.